Hi, everyone. I always laugh every time I see that. Welcome. It's Women Empowering Women Night, Ladies Night, however you want to say it. But all are welcome, of course. And we get to hang out and learn about women in history. And it's been mind-blowing, I tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Mind-blowing. And we're late because of Kim.
I know. Sorry. I'm sorry, my internet's weird today. So hopefully I can stay on the whole time.
I'm just teasing. Yeah, her internet's going in and out, but I guess it's windy. So, anyways, but we're here.
El Nino? Did you say
El Nino?
Is that what?
I think it's just windy. I don't know what's going on.
Ooh, Andrea, maybe you tapped into something.
Well, I thought that's what
Yeah,
you
could be.
said, so I don't know.
Interesting.
Ooh.
Wow.
It's crazy here. It's 100 degrees today. 100.
Oh my goodness.
Oh
I
wow.
like it.
That is hot. Yeah, that's a little hot.
But anyways, hello everyone. Hugging you all and welcome. So tonight, the women that we're going to be talking to, I'm just super excited about every single one, and we might as well go ahead and jump in and start. We're all here. I feel like we're all doing good, except Andrea's super hot. Well, you are really hot, Andrea.
Well,
right. Always hot.
And but might as well get started. And and you're first, Andrea. Actually,
I'm first. Okay, let's do this. I'd like to welcome to the show the lovely and talented Edmonia Lewis, also known as Wildfire. Now, I love that name, Wildfire.
I do too.
As you can see, she is a wonderful artist, specifically a sculptress. How do you say? Mm-hmm. I love sculpture. That's one of my favorite things to do is to look at sculptures. I mean, I could just be lost for days looking at sculpture. I just think it's a wonderful form of art. So Wildfire it's not entirely sure her exact birth date. She gave a few, but we'll go with 1844. 1844. So quite a little while ago. And let me see here. So she is of African American and Native descent. So she's part African and part First Nations or Aboriginal, whatever term you choose in your country to use. So she had a little bit of a rough start. By the time she was 9, both of her parents had died. And there is a little bit of discrepancy about who her actual father was, but in either case, both men had passed as well as her mother. So her 2 maternal aunts adopted her and her half brother, who was about 10 years older than her, and his name was Samuel. They were living in Niagara Falls, New York, for several years. And Wildfire is her native name. And I love that her brother's native name is Sunshine. It just makes me so happy.
Oh, how cool.
Isn't that wonderful? So she's Wildfire and her brother's Sunshine. So for many years, as a young girl, she would work with her aunts and sell native baskets, moccasins, embroidered blouses, etc. to visitors in the Niagara Falls, Toronto, and Buffalo area. During this time, like as a child, she always went by her Native American name, which was Wildfire. And as I said, her brother's called Sunshine. It just makes me so happy. Every time I see that, I just get really happy. So she eventually got to go to college, and the reason is that her older brother, her half brother, struck it rich in the gold rush.
Ooh.
He went out to San Francisco, he went out west, and he struck it rich. So by the time that she was of college age, he made her economically privileged, for lack of a better phrase. He made a fortune in the California gold rush and supplied her with every want, anticipating her wishes, and just like making her happy. So what a lovely relationship between wildfire and sunshine. I think that's he took care of his sister. So she enrolled in a pre-college program and met many leading activists who would become her mentors, patrons, and possibly subjects for her work later down the road. She left school after 3 years, having been declared too wild. Now, I think that's hilarious because her name is Wildfire.
Well, yeah.
What did you expect?
Right? So she said, until I was 12 years old, I led this wandering lifestyle, fishing, swimming, making moccasins. And then I went to school for 3 years, but was declared to be too wild. They could do nothing with me. Oh, dear.
Oh, goodness.
So she was one of the first women at this school, and certainly of a different ethnicity, right? So there was about 1,000 students at this school and only 30 students of color. So we can imagine it was a little bit rough. She said she did meet daily racism and discrimination. And she and other female students were rarely given the opportunity to participate in classroom or speak at public meetings. So you have this really robust young girl who's full of life and passion and art, and she's kind of silenced when she gets there. And then there's racism and all this other stuff, right? Even though she was happy to be at the school, her brother was paying for her, there was obviously some issues. So I think, well, we'll see if it's true or not, but I feel like she was targeted at school, which is part of the problem. So during the winter of 1862, there was an incident that occurred with her and a couple other girls. They were supposed to go meet some guys to go on a sleigh ride later in the day, but before they went, the two girls got sick. Now, the story is that they say she gave them something to drink, and then they got sick. Was it alcohol? Right. So there were charges against her that she was trying to poison the other girls, which makes absolutely no sense. Thank goodness she got a really good lawyer who said, listen, you had no contents from the stomachs of the girls. Like, the girls survived, like they weren't poisoned. Right. But that was obviously a very troubling time. So their authorities took no action against her. After that, lawyer said, you've got nothing here. You've got nothing here. However, it was a controversial incident that spread rapidly through the campus and this area. And one night when she was walking home alone, she was dragged into an open field by unknown assailants, badly beaten, and left for dead. I mean, that is just crazy. After her attack is actually when she got charged for the authorities. So there was an accusation, but after she got beat up, that's when the police decided to arrest her. How does that even make any sense?
Oh my gosh.
She didn't speak at her trial, but like I said, the lawyer was really great and got the case dismissed. There was absolutely no evidence. The remainder of her time at the school is marked by isolation and prejudice. About a year after the poisoning trial, she was also accused of stealing artist materials and helping a burglar. I just feel like, to me, none of that makes sense. I don't believe it. I think she was probably targeted. So that is why she left the school. But I'm happy to say, even though she didn't graduate, in this year of 2022, she was awarded a degree posthumously by the Oberlin College. So they gave her a degree this year. Can you imagine? So then after college, she went to Boston in 1864, where she began to pursue her career as a sculptor. She repeatedly told stories about encountering in Boston, a big statue. She didn't know what it was or what to call it, but concluding that she could make a stone man herself. And it was a statue of Benjamin Franklin, but she didn't know who it was or what this thing was. She just said, I want to make this. I want to make sculptures. A lot of tutors, professional sculptors refused to tutor her, unfortunately, for whatever reason. I'm sure racist or whatever the case may be, or the fact that she was a woman. Finally, one did, but that didn't end too well. So she just continued on her own, and she opened her own studio in 1864. So that same year, she opened her own studio to the public and had her first solo exhibition.
Oh, wow.
She was inspired by the lives of abolitionists and Civil War heroes. Her subjects included some of the most famous abolitionists of the day. She knew that some people didn't really appreciate her art, but she saw her art as an opportunity to express and show support for human rights. So she was creating something political in the work that she was doing. So she was making sculptures with purpose. Then she went to Rome. She said, I was practically driven to Rome in order to obtain the opportunities for art culture and to find a social atmosphere where I was not constantly reminded of my color. The land of liberty, meaning the United States, had no room for a colored sculptor. The success that she did have in Boston before she left did allow her to pay for her trip to Rome. And on her passport, can you believe they wrote, and when she went to school, she finally started using her name, Mary Edmonia Lewis. She stopped using Wildfire. So on her passport, it's written, Edmonia Lewis is a Black girl sent by subscription to Italy to having displayed great talents as a sculptor. Like an excuse, like, she's okay. No, it's okay. She can go. There's a reason, right? Because you can imagine.
Right.
So she spent most of her adult career in Rome, where Italy's less pronounced racism allowed increased opportunity for Black artists. There she was able to enjoy more social, spiritual, and artistic freedom than what she had in the United States. She was also Catholic, and being in Rome allowed her to have spiritual and physical growth and be close to her faith. Let's see. She began sculpting in marble and working in a neoclassical manner, but focusing on naturalism within themes and images relating to Black and American Indian people. The surroundings of the classical world greatly inspired her and influenced her work, in which she recreated the classical art style, such as presenting people in her sculptures as draped in robes rather than contemporary clothing. Male sculptors, however, were largely skeptical of the talent of female sculptors and often accused them of not doing their own work. So again, women facing, oh, you can't do that. How could you possibly sculpt in marble or anything else? You're a woman. So she just continued on with what she was doing. And many of her works, I should say, became really popular and sold for large sums of money. In 1873, one of her works got $50,000 commission, which is outrageous at that time. That would
say that's a lot of money that time.
A major coup in her career was participating in the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia. For this, she created a monumental 3,015-pound marble sculpture called The Death of Cleopatra. portraying the queen in the throes of death. It is apparently spectacular, and I would love to see it. It follows the moment popularized by Shakespeare when Cleopatra allows herself to be bitten by a poisonous asp. One reviewer wrote that the death of Cleopatra is the most remarkable piece of sculpture in the American section of the whole entire exposition. Much of the public was shocked by the frank betrayal of death, but the statue drew thousands of viewers nonetheless. The statue was lost to time, but in 1994, the Smithsonian recovered the statue. They spent $30,000 to restore it to its almost natural state. The repairs were extensive because of over time where it ended up, things like that. President Ulysses S. Grant commissioned her to do his portrait in 1877. I mean, that's enormous. The President of the United States wants you to do his portrait.
Yeah.
He sat for her as a model and was very pleased with the finished piece. So she was, I'm going to say, a tremendous sculptor. You can go online, everybody, and look her up and look for her artwork. It's really lovely.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And she never married. She never had any children. According to her death certificate, she died of chronic kidney failure. It's called Bright's disease. A little bit on her brother Sunshine. He did become a very successful barber in San Francisco. He married a lady who was a widow and had 6 children, which just makes me think he's wonderful still. They ended up having 1 son together. So Wildfire is the first Black Native sculptor of either sex to achieve international recognition within a Western sculptural tradition. She was a symbolic and social anomaly within a dominantly white bourgeois and aristocratic community. So she really made a mark in an area that had no one like her at all. And her work is still talked about today. The Smithsonian trying to save her work. And I love that her college gave her a degree this year.
Yeah.
And I'm so inspired. I love that her name is Wildfire, and she really was. She really was. And as you can see, there's many posthumous awards and accolades, and you can see there was a stamp there as well. So that's Edmonia Lewis, Wildfire.
All right, Wildfire.
Amazing lady. Okay.
And that gentle, I think you have to be, I don't know, but I feel like you have to be kind of gentle to do sculptures like that. There must be a real part of her heart, empathetic, etc., to see expressions on people and then create it, really tapping into the soul of the person or the essence of the person, and then creating it out of a hard substance with grace and beauty.
So a few things I got really interesting while you were talking, Andrea, is that she said one reason, and there are probably, of course, racial reasons and whatever, jealousy reasons, but she was saying that she was not afraid to speak up. She was not afraid to speak her mind. She was very outspoken, and that could rub people the wrong way sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because she said that she could be wildfire, but she's also said she could be a wildflower because she allowed herself to, this is what she said, she allowed herself to grow wherever she landed. And so whether it was a negative experience or positive experience, a place, a circumstance, she allowed herself to grow in any way that she could. She learned from it, basically. But this is something really interesting, because I kept getting that when you first started talking, I started drawing. I was like, well, not drawing. I just I doodle, right? So I'm writing that, and I'm thinking, oh, this is a tree. No, but I leave it like that, right? And then later on, I hear that she had a past life in Greece. And now that I look at this, I'm like, this is a column.
That is a column.
Yes.
And then you mentioned about how she put people in robes, the drapey robe things.
Yeah.
So there's something about that as well. Yeah, I'm getting chills with that. So there's something about that as well. And she also said that she knew from a very young age that she was here to create. That's what she was here to do. The sculptures were kind of, that born out of that necessity, but also just a knowing she's here to be creative and be a creative being here. So anyway, that's what I got. But she's her spirit is very to me very loving and kind, but also very there's a feistiness to it.
Yeah.
A fighterness to it.
I think it's really amazing. It was just after the Civil War, really, around that time. And to even be a female sculptor
it's amazing.
is amazing. And to even get recognized as a woman in that realm. Not to mention the fact that she was African American and Native American as well, which would have untold obstacles at the time.
Mm-hmm. And her brother is amazing too. I mean,
don't you just feel really good about him?
Well, and just that name, of course, it's such a manifestation, right? Of course, the sun's going to shine on someone named Sunshine, So it just makes sense that his life would have been so, so.
And he seems very loving, and he made sure to take care of her.
Absolutely.
Even if they don't even know if they were really half brothers or half brother sister, whatever, it didn't matter. That's my sister, and I'm taking care of her.
Yeah, really sweet.
She's taking me back to that incident at school when she was assaulted. And she said she had a choice to go in that moment. She's saying that she chose to stay.
Exit point.
It was an exit point for her, and she chose to stay.
Well, that just gave me full goosebumps.
Yeah.
Wow.
She wasn't going to let them win. And, ode to her name,
Yeah.
But, there's something in regards to that really is part of who she became. I think that was a real shift in her life in that moment. Apparently more happened than just being beat up. And so, but yeah, she wasn't going to let that take her, who she was.
I also feel that allegations are false. It's as soon as I read it, I'm like, I just felt
She was absolutely targeted. Yeah, she absolutely
did not feel legit, those accusations.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I bet those girls drank booze on their own and then blamed her.
Yeah. And that whole time, that time in school was a tough one. But like you said, Kim, she chose to rise through the ashes there.
I was asking about her art. I got a peace card. Really a beautiful moment for her is sculpting and creating that art, losing herself in it, right? forgetting about the troubles of the day or the culture at the time, whatever, and finding such peace. I also, as soon as you said that about Greece, I don't know if she was reincarnated or if she had someone over her shoulder guiding her, but I do feel a deep connection. She's somebody. I think she was someone before for sure that was maybe even quite well known at the time. It might be not a name that we know, but someone
Yeah.
in the circles at the time, maybe in Greece, like a lot
Yeah.
of years ago.
Mm.
There has to be some kind of a link, to that. If she's bringing it up, that there's some kind of a link to that, her then and her now. Maybe she was an artist then too, or some kind of, philosopher, writer, some kind of creator then too.
But she had that aha moment when she saw the sculpture. She didn't know what a sculpture was, and she didn't know who it was.
Right.
She looked at it and she said, "I can make this." So that's telling me, that's giving me kind of the, the little goosebumps here that she recognized a sculpture and knew that she'd done it before.
That's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
How interesting.
I would love
because you think of some of the amazing work in Greece, right? At the time with all of the,
Greece and Italy,
Italy. Absolutely.
I just love to see her face when she saw the sculpture. And the one about Cleopatra, I want to go online and see that a little bit better. I looked at it briefly, but she must have been really overwhelming. Well, maybe I could pull it up.
Yeah, I was just going to look.
That Cleopatra sculpture.
Talk amongst yourselves.
The internet. And, being inspired by those things, she wouldn't have been learning about that stuff when she was a young girl.
Is this the one?
Oh, it's this one.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
She's got something through her head.
That's so weird because I almost put that one in the, yeah.
Oh, that's her crown on her head. So there she's lying, dying on her throne.
Oh, wow.
I bet it's magnetic. And it must have been the realness of her death really caught people off guard. So again, you can't sculpt something like this and not be tremendously in touch with emotion and humanity. Do you know what I mean? Like there's that's a higher level. That's a divine gift.
Look at what strikes me about that picture or that sculpture is the piece on her face as she's, you know what I mean? It almost looks like she's smiling.
It's true.
Very interesting. It's a very interesting sculpture. Very interesting take on death.
On that moment. Yeah.
On that moment. Yeah. The death of someone like that.
She did a lot of indigenous.
Yes.
As well. But check it out, you guys. Check out her.
Check out her work. And she did a lot of stuff too. And that was the other thing. Social causes and injustices and stuff she would create that was showing up in her art as well.
Mm-hmm.
So she had, she was making people look at things, literally looking at social issues, etc.
Right. Amazing.
And I was just asking her about, a message that she would bring in today for us. And don't let your world tell you who you are. Let you tell the world who you are and what you came to do. You face daily how the world tries to mold you and take away from your magic. And she's saying, don't recognize where the world is trying to take away who you are. And you show the world who you are. That's her message.
What an important message for women, but now, as even now, that's such a perfect message for women right now.
And there's another sculpture she was asked to do. It was a couple's hands. I think they were an older couple, and one of them, I think the man that commissioned it. It's beautiful. It's just two sets of hands holding each other. There's so much emotion in that. I mean, when you look at it, it's like, how did she make emotion in a sculpture of two sets of hands?
Wow.
So, yeah, really check out her work, everyone. And I'm so glad that a lot of it has been found and documented and photographed. So I just feel really inspired by her work, and I'm really grateful for her to do what she did. And she didn't let her beautiful talent go away. She pushed and she pushed and she did it. In a time where, please, any woman to do something like that. And you even hear that the men sculptors didn't want to tutor her and or would say like, oh, she didn't really do that. Women of the day, they didn't really do that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How could a woman sculpt something that's 3,000 pounds?
Mm.
Well, because she can.
But wasn't it? I think it was Michelangelo that used to say that he'd wait for the piece to kind of present itself, and then he would just go in and find it within that like slab of marble or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like she really had that same gift where she could just. It was a spiritual act. It's
I
like
really feel
that happen. Amazing. And stupid, yeah, of course, yeah.
Wow.
And of course, we see this again and again. Every time we do this show, they want to diminish the accomplishments of women that are the first or the best or the, they go right. That's the first thing they do is go right in and try to diminish what they did or what they can do to try and push them back,
Instead of championing them. Why can't they just...
Exactly.
Hey, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, Wildfire. And Sunshine too. I feel he's got a really good soul too, her brother.
I know. That was a bonus to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And what happens too when a man supports someone, he supported her all the way through her life, and what a difference that made. And it didn't diminish him in any way. He did his thing and she did her thing. And the world would be very different if men could just do that. Right. All men. I guess there are a lot of men that do that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That it would be a different place. Yeah.
It would. And I do want to say thank you to Cindy Kruger for supporting the channel here. Blessings to you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm next. And but before, thank you again, Wildfire, for coming in. What a beautiful soul. It's hard to say goodbye.
I know.
So I am next, and my person is we have Hannah here, and it's Hannah Arendt. I hope I'm saying that right. And Hannah has an incredible story, and I hope I can bring it justice here. Okay. So Hannah was born October 14th, 1906 in Hanover, Germany, and she died December 4th, 1975 in New York, New York. Okay, so she was a German-born American political scientist and philosopher, known for her critical writing on Jewish affairs and her study of totalitarianism. And she doesn't like to be known as a philosopher because she feels it's much more, it's bigger than that, but that's how we can wrap our mind around what she was or who she was. So her notable okay, before I get to that, so she grew up in Germany, in Prussia, which is now known as Kaliningrad, Russia. So, beginning in 1924, she studied philosophy at the University of Marburg, um, the Albert Ludwig University of Freiburg, and the University of Heidelberg. She received a doctoral degree in philosophy in 1928. And at Marburg, she began a romantic relationship with her teacher, Martin Heidegger, and that lasted till 1928. He was a teacher, professor there, and he was married. So that was just a little, that not a little, but that was a love affair. But in 1933, when Heidegger joined the Nazi Party and began implementing Nazi educational policies as a rector of Freiburg, Arden, who was Jewish, was forced to flee to Paris. In Paris, she married Heinrich Blücher, a philosophy professor. They married in 1940. She again became a fugitive from the Nazis in 1941. She was captured and placed in a camp, and I think it's not written here, but I think it was called something started with a G, I think it was Gurug or something like that. But she escaped, and so her husband also was able to get. I don't know how he didn't say about him, but they were able to meet up, and they immigrated together to the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. So Arden settled in New York City at that time. I also want to state here before we move forward is her life up to that point. It was described as a lot of terror, and her dad died when she was 7. She watched him die. He had syphilis, and so died of whatever that does to you. Anyways, they described it as just she lived through a lot of horrors. Her mom then remarried someone who had 2 daughters, so they were 2 older stepsisters. I guess it just all wasn't great. So that was before she was put into had to flee, and then was captured and put in this camp, and then she was able to escape there. So a lot of trauma already up to this point. So she settled in New York City, became a research director of the Conference on Jewish Relations, 1944 to 46. She was the chief editor of Shoken Books from 46 to 48, and the executive director in 1949 to 1952 of the Jewish Cultural Reconstruction, which sought to salvage Jewish writings dispersed by the Nazis. She was naturalized as an American citizen in 1951, and she taught at the University of Chicago from 63 to 67, and thereafter at the New School for Social Research in New York City. Arden's reputation as a major political thinker was established by her origins of I can never say that word, but totalitarianism in 1951, which also treated the 19th century anti-Semitism, imperialism, and racism. Arden viewed the growth of and I knew this was going to happen because I had to say it 500 times, the growth of totalitarianism as the outcome of the disintegration of the traditional national state. She argued that totalitarian regimes through their pursuit of raw political power and their neglect of material or utilitarian considerations, had revolutionized the social structure and made contemporary politics nearly impossible to predict. So, The Human Condition, published in 1958, was a wide-ranging and systemic treatment of what Arendt called the vita activa, Latin for active life. She defended the classical ideas of work, citizenship, and political action against what she considered a debased obsession with mere welfare. Like most of her work, it owed a great deal to the philosophical style of Heidegger, and that would have been that early teacher. Okay, so she, in a highly controversial work, Eichmann in Jerusalem in 1963, based on her reportage of the trial of the Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann in 1961, Arendt argued that Eichmann's crimes resulted not from a wicked or depraved character, but from sheer thoughtlessness. He was simply an ambitious bureaucrat who failed to reflect on the enormity of what he was doing. His role in the mass extermination of Jews epitomized the fearsome word and thought defined banality of evil that had spread across the Europe at that time. Arendt's refusal to recognize Eichmann as inwardly evil prompted fierce denunciations from both Jewish and non-Jewish intellectuals. The controversy was revived some 4 decades after Arendt's death with the publication of The Unexamined Life of a Mass Murderer, which was based in part on sources not available to Arendt. It just challenges the banality of evil.
Mm-hmm.
So, arguing that Eichmann had long been confirmed as an anti-Semite, Arendt resumed. So, she has Ardent's other works include Between Past and Future, on Revolution, Men in Dark Times, on Violence, and Crisis of the Republic, and her unfinished manuscript, The Life of the Mind. So those were some of her works. Okay. Okay. And I guess that's it on her. Very interesting person, but you can see kind of what she was trying to say there. It's not just evil, there's choice here.
Mm-hmm.
But it was misinterpreted. I mean, people read her works, and just because it is, I mean, how do we want to wrap our mind around how can somebody, and I'm going to take this down so we can remove, how can someone be a part of just murdering a whole people, like, and so we wrap our mind around, well, they're evil, they're just evil, they're just pure evil. And she's saying, nope, they're just, this is a choice in them. So I thought that was interesting. But it sounds like she was a lot of her life. She was up against opposition like that. People, her philosophy, what she saw in humanity and how she brought that through. there's something else about her that I want to say. There's been a new article that just was recently written, and it's kind of in regards to Trump and what she would say in regards to him. And if you guys want to look that up, please do and read it. It was brilliant. It was a brilliant piece as well, and it kind of gives you some insight into that as well, and what she would say, and how that is, it's kind of automatic for what's happening in our world right now. But anyways, very, very, very brilliant. I feel almost before her time.
Yeah.
Person here. But I'm grateful for her as she trudged a path open that wasn't there before. And so, and look at her getting her doctorate in 1923 or whatever it was. I mean,
Amazing.
When I was looking at her pictures, I just was getting, she's really smart. Like, I mean, she might be the smartest person we've read on so far. I'm just getting, like, it was so
brilliant.
Yeah, really deep thinking and intelligence on a level I don't remember hitting before with someone else, man or woman. Very smart. And my God, what she lived through.
Yeah.
I mean, she was in a camp, you said? Yeah, and escaped.
Escaped. Yeah. Yep.
Whew.
Okay.
So as soon as her picture popped up, or pictures popped up, so in Debbie and my classes, we do this exercise where we just look at people's eyes. We kind of read through the eyes. So as soon as she popped up, I wrote down very quickly what came to me when I looked, because she's very expressive eyes as a younger woman and an older woman. And the three things that came up, I wrote down very quickly: pain, fierceness, and a writer. Those things came up in her eyes.
In her eyes.
There's something about, and they are the window to the soul. You know, there's things you can read in people's eyes that anybody can do that. But when I just want to bring up, I'm not sure how you guys are seeing her, but the whole time you're talking, Debbie, I saw her leaning against a wall. She had a cigarette in her hand, and she had kind of a straight skirt, straight kind of a shirt tucked in, and she is standing like this against the wall, and she's holding her cigarette, just listening, just kind of standing there stoically, just listening to exactly what you're saying. I feel like one of the words that she was bringing up as you were talking about her philosophy about evil, is that she had a very nuanced way of seeing things. She could see the gray, and it was a time. She's especially saying, you know, during that time when they're living through this, right, and they have to assess it and figure it out, and everything was very black and white, and she could see the gray. She could see that what brought all of these people to this point were a series of decisions. It wasn't just they were born evil. It was they and in a way it puts all the responsibility on them, rather than saying, well, they're just evil. That puts it on God or their creator or their parents or whatever. Yeah. And she's saying, no, this was a series of decisions that they made, and this is their fault and their responsibility. And I think that because she was able to see that gray, that nuance, she could do that. And I think that's you said it, Debbie. She was ahead of her time.
Yes.
My Cassie, and this is not put on Cassie, but Cassie has a channel where she looks at different crimes, and she looks at all these different, and she has said there is not one case yet, one murderer, one criminal yet that was born evil. They were all at one point could have been helped, could have been intervened with, could have had a different path. They all had these chances, and they all made choices that kind of led them into where they ended up. Backgrounds. There was lots of things, but not one has she come across where she's just like, oh, that person was just born evil. They just were evil.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I put in the chat, I put the link to the Donald Trump. It's in the article. So if you all want to look at that, it's very interesting. Be prepared for your mind to stretch a little, because like Andrea said, she's brilliant.
Yeah, I got the power card for her, and we see that sort of big crown and halo. So again, her brain, extremely smart, extremely powerful, before her time, or almost, again, holding someone back, society holding her back because she's a woman and she's very smart. Right? But she was still pushed through. We're talking about her today, right? We're talking about her. So she must have had a lot of power and intelligence. And how she looked at the world, Kim, exactly. That's what I could see in her pictures. Very smart, but it's also this sort of, it's like she could see another layer or something. Like you said, the great, she could see something not everybody sees. Yes. Exactly what you were saying.
And very, very, and it probably is what you're picking up, Andrea. Very intellectually, and no, she almost, for that time, almost thought like a man, because there wasn't really any emotion in it. Very, very grounded and just, not even man, I should say more masculine, grounded in logic, very logical,
very clinical.
Very clinical, exactly. What were you going to say, Debbie? Sorry.
I was just talking to her, and right when you said that, she was kind of showing me this, I don't want to say androgynous, but just very, not, but have that masculine filter.
Right.
She was just showing me that in the moment you said that. So I love when that happens. I always get it. It just all means we're all in the right.
But that's it. It's so validating when we get
validating.
Information for sure. Andrea, could you check with your pendulum? I kind of feel like she's been back and gone already. She came back very quickly and then left already. And I'm just wondering if that is correct or what is going on there.
Has Hannah ever reincarnated and come back to Earth? Yes. More than once? No.
Yeah, it feels like it was almost like it was quickly after, and then boom, gone again.
Yeah, it was a quick.
It was quickly after, reasonably soon after she passed. Yes. Did she come back as a woman? Ooh, did she come back as a man? She came back as a man.
Interesting.
Was she in science, medicine? Was she a writer? She came back as a man writer. I bet she wanted to see the flip side. Right? She knows how she was treated.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like it was quick though, like you said. I feel like
it was
like quick trip.
Quick trip. Like she didn't live very, she wasn't old when she passed.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was purpose. There was a purpose in it. There was something that, it was just something that she would have, she's like, that shifted something.
I'm seeing newspapers. She must have been a journalist or something. It feels like current events, that kind of thing, like political current events now, stuff that's happening right now. But I keep seeing newspapers, so maybe.
Interesting. Yeah.
Do you feel like she's a bit guarded?
Do I feel like what?
Guarded a little bit? Like a bit reserved or guarded?
Guarded. She's just thoughtful.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? She's thoughtful she's like, when she gives something, it's thought out. Does that make sense? It's not, there's not wasted space.
Yeah. And I feel like she's not running in to share with us,
Yeah.
she's, like you said, kind of
She's allowing us to.
Well, and I feel like too, for me, I'm reading her differently because I'm seeing a lot of pictures with her. And I think it is because that empath part it's not totally what she's made up of. She's made up of so much,
there's a lot going on here.
Yeah.
When I was looking at her pictures, all I could feel was here on me and her. Like, I don't know, like I was seeing math equations that I don't understand, or things like she's really smart.
Yeah.
Very, very smart.
Yeah, but I feel like I'm reading her differently, and that tells me there is not that like emotion that like our last lady, a lot of you could feel that just that you could feel her. This is very, at least for me, it's very different. I'm getting a lot of visuals and a lot of very like particular words and things like that. Very exact. I feel like she's giving it to us, but like you said, she's not oversharing. She's just
I feel like
she's what it is.
This much space for me, like vertical, very exact. Sometimes I can feel the whole room with someone, right? But her, it's very exact, and I feel like it's black, white, and gray. Like it's very clinical, very intelligent. Not that there isn't any kind of emotion there. I think she's a very nice person.
Yeah.
She's just very interesting, to say the least.
Right. And it's funny because with like when I talk to my guides, they're very they tell me things about the world and about situations where I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. And they're not emotionally involved. They're very, very logical. They're very, kind of lay it down in a way that's like, I know you feel this way, but this is the way it is. And so in a way, she's very in line with spirit in so many ways. Yeah, I think that as a human, I read emotionally and emotions, but as a spirit, it's different. It's different, right? Everybody's an open book. It's different. So, but yeah, and dancing intuitive. That's very, very much so. I think there's something about her that's very interesting.
Very interesting.
Very different from, reading her very differently.
Never felt this kind of mind before. No, and I've read it.
No. And so, and she's, she's saying she lived her life her way. She's like, I live my life my way. She just kind of like wildfire, but differently, you know what I mean? But they both did their life their way. And she said, I live my life my way. I said, do you have a message for us? And she says, I have a question for you. I have a question for you all. And she says, what is it that your path is made of? Is it made of hate? Is it made of fear? Is it made of love? What is your path made of? And I'm like,
wow.
So there, and so when I was writing it down, I'm looking at my path, and you can see along my path that I've experienced a lot of that, and I would, if I was living in fear, then my path turned in a certain way. You know what I mean? My journey, my life was built around fear. And so then I started directing, but I feel like I'm living more, I'm really trying to live a path of love. And so what does that look like? And you can see it shift right before me of what that looks like. And so that's what she's asking all of us.
I love that. I love you too.
And again, just to point out the obvious, again, a very logical way to look at things, right? What's your path made of? And also that also bleeds into her philosophy about choice, that once this is how I want it to go, this is what I want my path to look like, your choices become different,
Sure does.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah, she's cool. I do feel like she's very, very much though standing and just kind of listening. Do I want to get involved in this or not? Kind of like standing back and watching us, but I feel like she likes us. I feel like
Yes.
she
Oh, yes. And she seems like a very nice person.
Yes, very.
It's just different.
But not easily impressed. And not
fair enough.
Yeah,
it's totally fair.
Yeah, totally fair.
I do think she thinks that this kind of show is exactly what's needed. I do think that. Why aren't I thinking she's like, why isn't there more conversations about women in history and what we bring to the table?
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah. I like her. I really, really do. I want to be in her club.
Me too.
Whatever her club is. She's cool. Like her.
Okay. Kim?
Yes. All righty. So I am going to be completely different than both of you. But they're all very different. Actually.
I love
These
them
are all very different. So I picked someone from a sitcom because how I love television. So I picked Rosemary from, she was most famous probably from the Dick Van Dyke Show. But I remember growing up seeing her, and as a little girl, I loved her because she always wore bows in her hair. And I loved that. That made anyone pretty if you had a bow in your hair. So, yeah, I always loved her as a little girl. But so Rosemary was born Rose Marie Mazzetta from Manhattan, New York. She was, that very Italian-American from New York on August 15th, 1923. You can hear it in her accent, she was born to her mother was Polish-American, her father Italian-American. He was a vaudeville actor, Frank Mazzetta, who went by the name Frank Curly. Her mother took her to see local vaudeville shows when she was just a little girl. And Rosemary would sing everything she heard in the show, and she'd sing it for neighbors. And her neighbors eventually entered her in talent contests, of course, which she won. At the age of 3, this is all very interesting. I did not know so much about her story, but she started performing under the name Baby Rosemary at 5, and she was offered a 7-year contract and became a radio star on the NBC radio network. And she made a series of films. But she later recalled, I had a deep voice, not like Shirley Temple, but more like Sophie Tucker. I never sounded like a child, so there were some people who thought I was really a 30-year-old little person. To counteract these rumors, NBC arranged for her to undertake a national stage tour, and she appeared in a few short films, including Baby Rosemary and Child Wonder in 1929. So at the height of her child star fame, her child singer fame, from late 1929 to 1934, she had her own radio show, and she made a ton of records, and she was featured in a number of Paramount films and shorts. She continued to appear in films throughout the 1930s, making shorts and one feature film with W.C. Field for Paramount. And so that was kind of her childhood career. And then as an adult, as she went into adulthood, she started to get really popular in the nightclub and lounge performance, New York kind of scene. And according to her autobiography, Hold the Roses, she was assisted in her career by many members of organized crime, including Al Capone and Bugsy Siegel. And because of the Flamingo's organized crime ties, because she performed at the Flamingo, She had to seek permission to perform in other casinos and remained loyal to the boys, the organized crime boys, at the Flamingo for the rest of her life. So you think about this, young women out there singing in lounge acts and the lounge singer stuff as a young woman, and she had the mob looking out for her. They called her the kid, and they looked out for her whole life. So that's how you take care of sexual harassment in the 1950s. Is you have the mob telling you that they'll look out for you and telling people to lay off. So she was in 1960 to 1961. She was in a show called My Sister Eileen, television shows. She started going into television at this point. And 1961 to 1966, she was Sally Rogers on the Dick Van Dyke Show, which probably most people know her from.
Yep.
She co-starred in 2 seasons of the Doris Day Show as Doris Day's best friend. She also appeared in 2 episodes of The Monkees, which also I, of course, remember. She later had a semi-regular seat in the upper center square on the original version of the Hollywood Squares, which I remember her there too.
Yep, I do too.
She also was in an era, where she preceded, people like Joan Rivers and Roseanne Barr and people who she really did create that mold of that kind of brassier, kind of funny. She wrote her own stuff. She wrote her own jokes. She kind of did break the mold for that, because although there was Lucille Ball, Lucy didn't write her own stuff. And she also was a glamorous Hollywood star. She was beautiful. Lucy was. And she wasn't kind of an ordinary woman from the Bronx or from Manhattan Island. She wasn't that. She was very much a Hollywood beauty. And so she kind of broke the mold into this kind of just funny, more brassy, comedic style that came along with her. So she went on to do the Dean Martin Show. She did a lot of guest spots. She was in SWAT in the mid-1970s, Murphy Brown in the 80s, Herman's Head and Caroline in the City in the 90s. So she never stopped working. Her personal life, she was married to trumpet player Bobby Guy from 1946 until his death in 1964. Everybody said they were the most in love couple you have ever seen. And when he died so young, I'm not sure how old he was, but he was maybe 40, maybe 41, something like that. She was devastated, and they did have one daughter, but she was heartbroken. She never remarried her whole life. She did have a platonic relationship with a kind of a companion. He owned the Pussycat Theaters. His name was Vince Miranda. And near the end of her life, when she was 94 years old, and she died at 94, but in 2017, before she passed away, she was very, very supportive on social media for the Me Too movement. And she did have some instances, but of course, later on in her career, she had protection and people looking out for her. But she absolutely understood what women go through when they are. You think about her too, in the man's game of kind of comedy writing, being a comedian. She really broke a mold there, because there just wasn't a lot of there weren't a lot of predecessors in that doing what she was doing. So someone referred to her as, I can't remember who it was, but it was another comedian referred to her at her eulogy as the patron saint of female comedy writers. So a really extraordinary, interesting, kind of a brave lady to do what she did and just keep doing it no matter what. But also the whole thing about being a child star. So, so interesting. And she, to me, she comes in laughing. She's she never took she didn't take things very seriously. She let things roll off of her. She didn't hold grudges. It feels like to me she was very forgiving. Didn't hold grudges. Was easy to work with. She's saying she was a pro. She keeps calling. She's saying I was a pro. So she was a professional. She showed up prepared. She liked to work. She's saying workaholic, but she I think she really, really enjoyed working. And I feel like she was a consummate professional. She showed up knowing her stuff.
I feel she never missed a mark or a beat. Like
Yeah.
she had it down. And what a testament that we know that a lot of kids in those early days in the films and things, they didn't have a long career.
Right.
Even some nowadays don't have a long career. But for her, she had her whole life.
Right.
From a child to up till, I'm sure she was probably doing appearances in her 80s. Who even knows? But that's a real testament to keep working. And that just shows how much she loved it.
Mm-hmm.
She loved to perform and make people laugh.
And I feel like she's giving I feel like she's giving props to the ladies we talked to before. I feel like she's been here the whole time listening. And I feel like she's like, I can't believe, I am so honored that I am here in this same arena with these two ladies there. But I feel like she is just I'm getting chills. She's like singing their praises. Like, these women are amazing. They are top notch. They are, I feel like I'm kind of here, but I'm so flattered, that I would be kind of in the mix with these two ladies.
But also important to know that we all bring our own music to the table, so to speak.
Right.
And it's all very important as we shift energy, and the importance of what Rose, what you brought is super important. You were a trailblazer for women in general, and for women in the industry, and just women in general, because you played, she was strong in character on screen, and
showing the world that women are funny. Like, hello.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And talent,
There isn't anything, I mean, art and literature and, to me, comedy, being able to laugh at life and laugh through life, that is just as big a gift to the world as all of these other things that we really do, think of as so important in this world, which they are. But being able to laugh, I mean, absolutely. I know, having gone through the hospice and everything with my sisters and my mom, we laughed through the whole thing. And we always found the lightness in whatever horrible thing was happening. And it's such a gift to be able to see life that way sometimes, because life can really punch you in the gut. It really can. And if you know how to laugh, it is a weapon you take with you through life. It really, really is. Something that can lift you up in the most
absolutely
difficult of circumstances. So laughter is a big, big gift to this world. She's
very warm. She feels very warm.
Very.
She does to me too.
And she keeps bringing up something about she was lonely, actually. There was some loneliness there. So I asked her, because she keeps bringing it in, and I'm like, am I hearing right? You know how I do. Because I'm like, you don't seem like you would be lonely, in my judgment of her and listening to her story. But she said, I was alone. I was lonely. I kept people, I was surrounded, but I kept people at a arm's length, and it created, and I said, well, do you have a message for all the lonely people out here that where we find ourselves in that place? Sometimes I think we all have moments of loneliness, even when we're surrounded by people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said it's almost like get out of your own way here in that situation. You've built some walls for some reasons, but they're not working anymore, right? So be brave. Take down the walls and let people in.
I think, and I think that sometimes, I'm glad you brought that in, Debbie, because I think sometimes with performers, they're good at pretending, right? They're good at acting like everything's great and everything's good. And I think that I was very touched to read about the relationship with her husband.
Isn't that so
that
sweet?
she had?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he may have been one of the only people who I think she felt really, really understood her and who she really let completely in, you know? So I think that you're absolutely tapping into that, to something that may have picked up a little bit after he was gone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
That hole that it can leave, you know? If you're not because you can be very friendly and outgoing and still not really let people in. Like, you know, there's different levels of letting people in into who you are, what you're about. And I do wonder if her husband maybe was one of the only people that knew her really, really.
What?
That's how in sync we are. Boop.
Wow.
So you're waving it. I'm like, I have one.
Hey, and I just got this. I got it at the dollar store. Is that where you got yours?
No, I don't know. I got mine at a bookstore or something. I don't know.
Because I thought I'm gonna go get more of these. I really like
them. I want it. The card I got with her is listening. And I think 1,000%, that's how she knew how to make people laugh. Really good listener, right? Listening to how people talk or funny stories that she could then use in her work, right? She's also a writer. Really good at listening. So we know her for what she said, but we now know a bit of a skill set that she had. She's a really good listener, listening to people's conversation, whether she's on a plane or in a restaurant. You know, how do people talk to each other? What's funny? What's a good story for my show I'm writing? So that was a little gift that she had. Not everyone's a great listener, but she certainly was. Yeah.
And those observational skills, being
exactly.
able to observe and that is a gift.
Helps her play her characters or writing or whatever it was. Yeah. She's really fun. She's a lovely energy.
She is.
I just feel like she's smiling all the time.
I do too. I feel like I said, I feel like she came in laughing, and I feel like that is her spirit. She really, really did let in her career, she really let that spirit be seen, you know, because I think that is who she was.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal to be, you know, on those shows. I don't remember all of them, but the Dick Van Dyke Show obviously was an enormous television show.
Right.
Still plays today. And I think, wasn't she on some Dean Martin roast or something like that? I feel like there
I'm sure she was. Like I said, all of her appearances. She had a ton of
you know, sassy. Like she could be up there with one of the boys, right? Like hang out with the guys, which was probably a tough gig to get for, we know, like Joan Rivers and Phyllis Diller and maybe Carol Burnett, we could say, or, you know, that was hard for them to get there up to that level as a woman.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you think when she's
right up there,
and one of her first like TV shows is with like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore and kind of and Carl Reiner, like all these kind of big heavy hitters. And she's just, you know, she is one of those people that really stands out and in the show. And it does show that she probably was a real pro, you know. She could hold her own for sure.
Definitely. Love her. Yeah. Well, thank you, Rosemary.
Thank
Thank
you,
you to
Rosemary.
all
What a neat
the
show. This was really fun.
yeah.
3 really interesting ladies.
All trailblazers.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the
Very
women
much
are,
so.
but these 3 really in the forefront of their individual careers, skill
Yeah.
sets were really right up in the front.
Yeah. I have to say, I was excited about meeting these ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a real fearlessness through each of them, career wise,
Mm-hmm.
being able to express themselves. Yeah, real fearlessness in that, in all 3 of these ladies.
Definitely.
So, are we fearless now? Are we ready?
Are we gonna,
Everyone?
that's definitely, what is our path? What path are we choosing?
Yeah, that was so beautiful.
Are we choosing fear? No.
Debbie, you look very glamorous.
Is
Is it suntan? I mean, you always look glamorous. Who's kidding who?
You're so
You do.
I feel so.
You're blonde and tan, and we're all jealous.
A movie star.
You guys are making me blush.
Oh.
Anyways, I just love you guys.
I love you too. I love you both.
And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight and getting to meet and learn and grow. I always feel so more
It's amazing.
obviously not in the way I speak. I feel expanded, or expansion happens every Monday.
Yeah,
I do too.
It's so incredible. So thanks for experiencing this with us and doing this with us. And
no, we haven't met live, David.
We have not yet. We're planning it though.
Yeah.
Have you two? You haven't met before in life?
In face to face, we have not met yet.
Wow.
Face to face.
Someday.
Anyways, love you guys, and thank you so much to the moderators, and a special thanks to Tarot Love Community, Gina, Tracy, and Helene. Thank you for shouting us out and taking care of the chat. So blessings to everyone.
We'll be on my channel next week.
Right. Next week, we're on Kim's channel, and so we'll see you then. We know it's a holiday, but we don't care. We're going to be here.
Yeah.
So we'll celebrate the holiday together. So blessings to you all, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.